All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do still have, if you want to, I know it's tight in here, and I apologize, it's still a little hot. We haven't turned on the AC yet, not quite that season. We do still have a few seats over to the side over here for anyone who needs to sit. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the ADU Accelerator Workshop. We are thrilled to see so many people here and to see you all interested in building accessory dwelling units or in-laws or granny flats or garage apartments or backyard cottages or basement suites or whatever we want to call them right here in New Bedford. My name is Will Gardner. I'm with SouthCoast Places for People, and we are the proud co-hosts of this workshop along with the City of New Bedford. We are here tonight to give you the information and support and all the connections that you need to build an accessory dwelling unit, whether that's for family, whether it's for rental income, or whether it's simply to just make better use of your property. We will walk you through the basics, what ADUs are, how to build one, what it costs, and how to navigate things like permitting and financing. A little bit about SouthCoast Places for People. We are a brand new group, and we are dedicated to a more livable and connected communities across the South Coast. One of our goals is to help to grow an ecosystem of small-scale local developers. So whether you know it or not, that includes all of you. And if you're thinking about building an accessory dwelling on your property, you're taking part in helping to solve our housing crisis from the ground up. We firmly believe that part of the solution to the housing crunch that we're experiencing right now is to get all of us from within our own communities, within our own neighborhoods, building the housing we need, because you know better than anybody what your community needs, right? So that's what we're all about. You may see these sheets around the room. Before you leave, if you're interested in finding out more, register for our next meetup. We have free monthly meetups. We get together. We talk about nerdy stuff like housing and parking and transportation locally. All right, what to expect for tonight. We'll hear from experts on zoning, permitting, financing, and all types of construction for ADUs. We have folks here from the city planning department. There's also some folks in the audience that I see that are from planning departments in other towns in the region. There will be time at the end for Q&A, so if you can hang on to your questions, we'll do a Q&A with all the experts at the end. We'll also hang out afterwards, so if you want to grab someone and ask them individually, you're welcome to do that. So stick around afterwards to chat. You're welcome to do that. And after tonight, for everyone who's registered, we'll send a follow-up. We'll have some materials from our various presenters. And we just want to make this as clear and smooth a process as possible. So one of the purposes of tonight as well is to connect everybody here so that as you're going forth with your various projects, we can get feedback from you, the city can get feedback from you, and we can help to make that process even smoother, both for you and the people that are following you in building additional housing. Before we proceed, I want to recognize our lead sponsor tonight, Baycoast Bank. So give a round of applause for Baycoast Bank. And we've got some great presenters from Baycoast as well. We also want to thank our community sponsor, Bristol County Savings Bank. Give it up for Bristol County. They'll be presenting. They have materials here as well. And we would like to thank Ground Floor Cafe for the delicious food. Thank you, Ground Floor. And Carl and Pekka. And let me see, we also have at least one elected official in the house tonight. Shane Burgo, City Councilor, is here. Thank you, Shane, for being here. Did I miss any electeds? All right, I'm good. Okay. I'm going to recognize him in just a moment. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Amaral, who's Director of Housing here in New Bedford.
right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Josh Amaral. I'm the director of the city's Office of Housing and Community Development, and I'm pleased to be here with you all today. To see the turnout here is really remarkable and a reminder of why it is that we're doing our work and how urgent we are about the way that we're doing it. Again, want to acknowledge Council President Burgo for his attendance here. He's been a champion for housing causes on the council and a supporter of our Building New Bedford housing plan, and so we certainly appreciate that. I also want to thank Will Gardner and Places for People for taking the initiative on this event, so it's a fairly easy thing for us to say, yeah, let's help make that happen. It's consistent with all of our goals, and we want to make this work, but it's a whole other thing to handle the legwork of putting it together, marketing the event, and doing everything that brings you all here tonight. So thank you to Will for stepping forward with that leadership. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank my friends at the New Bedford Free Public Library. It's a wonderful space, and it's consistent with the purpose of the library to bring people in to gather for things like this, and so we thank them for that as well. About us, as I mentioned, Director of the Office of Housing and Community Development. We're located across the street over there. We do a wide range of things from preventing and aiding in the recovery from homelessness to managing community development block grant, home funds, and other federal monies that come to the city to do great things. And then we've spearheaded this Building New Bedford housing plan. We recognize there's a shortage of housing units throughout our region, and it's going to take a real concerted effort, this being one of the many stops along the way, to resolving that. And so we've worked hard at it. Here's our team, a dedicated group of about 15 folks that work hard across multiple sectors to make things happen. This is our Building New Bedford housing plan. This came out in March of 2023. We've been hard at work implementing it since. 6 different policy priorities: facilitating housing production across income levels, making use of existing housing stock and space, promoting home ownership and independent living, working on our zoning and sort of regulatory approach, establishing a regional approach, and then addressing housing instability and homelessness, which is last but certainly not least. And so as you can imagine, what brings you here tonight is probably something that falls in one of these buckets, right? Using the space we have available to us, showing leadership throughout the region, et cetera. Specific to ADUs, we had a goal in the plan that we'll have a best practice ordinance clarifying and expanding their use. We published this in 2023. In 2024, the state took action and put in place a new state law that allows for much wider use of ADUs throughout the state. We were onto that back in 2023, and we wanted to be a leader in New Bedford, and so we've done that, and with the help of the planning department and the administration, we've advanced through the city council an ordinance that will do just that, but it largely mirrors the state action that's in place now, with a few things that make it sort of unique to New Bedford or expand on New Bedford's strengths, as my colleague Mike McCarthy will expand on soon. So that's in motion. And then as another goal of the plan, and I think this is really, really critical, as a show of hands, who here is from not New Bedford? Look at that. So what we have seen and what our plan remarks on, right, is that the number of housing units that are needed in greater New Bedford is relatively high, right? There might be different estimates that are floating around out there, but there's a lot of units, right? And we know it's hard to get a single unit built anywhere, pretty much anywhere in Massachusetts, and it's difficult to get a unit built anywhere in southeastern Massachusetts as well. It has been really difficult to get multifamily projects off the ground in some of the towns around us, right? There's concerns about budgets and school populations and change, right? Change is hard for everybody. Where are people going to park? How is that going to impact things? It's complicated, right? And so in New Bedford, we say it's going to take an entire region to stand up together and make sure we address this problem. And so New Bedford will do its part. We'll lead the way. There's no doubt we'll build the bulk of the new housing units that come online, but we can't do it alone. We need buy-in in the towns. It's really important. It's important whether you're a senior looking to downsize but not move out of town, whether you're a college student that wants to move back to town but you can't afford a house that costs $800,000, $900,000, so you need an apartment. Well, where are the apartments? Well, we don't have any. Where am I going to go? New Bedford. Now there's a New Bedford family that's competing for that same unit with a lot of different people, and that's what causes costs to rise, right? So we all need to be in together, and I think what we can largely agree on is that ADUs are a way to add housing units in a way that really doesn't cause these widespread impacts and these uncertainties and all that, right? A single unit, self-sustaining, on a property, kind of set back, not really adding to the burden of town or whatever it might be. And so we see this event and our work on this issue as a critical part of a regional strategy. And again, New Bedford can't dictate to anybody what anyone's going to do, but the more we know, the more we're armed with these tools, I think the more we can get our collective population's needs met. And so that's why we're so excited about this here tonight. So that wraps it up for me. If we can be of assistance at the Office of Housing and Community Development, please reach out. We're on social media, we're everywhere. The planning department's probably going to be your go-to in terms of New Bedford-specific planning and zoning questions, but we can help along the way. We have first-time home buyer programs, home repair programs, and other financing sources as well that I shouldn't sell short. So please look us up, get in touch with us. If we can help, we're always happy to answer a question. And again, thank you for coming out tonight.
My name's Christian Gavush-Silvera. I am here on behalf of a design build company here locally. Thank you everyone for being here about this initiative and move this along, and thank you to the city for really trying to help this housing need that we have and to help aid what's needed for it. So I just kind of want to touch about our history a little bit, and then I'm also here with Tyson. He's our development manager for SouthCoast and Associates. He's going to touch on ADUs a little bit more, the regulations around them, which Josh did touch on as well. And he's going to kind of talk about how it could benefit you. So we are a design build company based in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. We design anything ranging from accessory dwelling units to renovations, additions, light commercial. I'm sure many of you in here know Tia Maria's or Play Arcade, Greasy Luck. Those are projects that we worked on the design side of things. We have tons of different ADU design options, whether it's an addition to your existing home, so that way it ties into the existing home and looks similar to the existing home, detached structures, whether it's a more traditional design, modern design. We have all different types of designs that you're able to play with, whether we design it from scratch for you or you're working with a preset spec design that we already have. We're able to help you thoroughly on the design side. And then on the build side, like I said, we work on large-scale remodels, additions, accessory dwelling units, light commercial work, really all forms of construction from residential all the way to industrial. So Tyson's going to talk to you a little bit more, and thank you again for all being here.
Thank you. And so, quick show of hands, anyone know what an ADU was before they came here? All right, pretty familiar? Okay, well, simply put, it is an additional living space that is given to us by right in the state of Massachusetts, okay? It benefits people such as older relatives wanting to downsize, children who cannot yet afford to move out. It can be a source of rental income, generational housing, i.e. keeping families together, keeping the property and the family in a cost-effective manner, increasing housing supply, and then the best part is it can be designed to match the aesthetic of your current home, and so that way it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb in your neighborhood, which is something that a lot of people worry about whenever new construction is happening in their area. What is that going to make my neighborhood look like? Here are some of the options that we have. Garage conversions, basement renovations, attached ADUs, and detached, which detached is one of the newer ways that they're allowing ADUs to occur in the state of Mass. Before, you used to have used to need like a breezeway or some way to connect it to your existing structure. The requirements, no larger than 900 square feet or 50% of the home's square footage. That includes your basement, your attic, any other square footage that you have in the home. So more oftentimes than not, we end up being able to build something that is 900 square feet, which is a really decent living space on a fixed budget, right? Must fit within the setbacks, coverages, septic, bedroom allowance there, because we want to make sure that your property can handle whatever we're putting on it, because otherwise that causes more issues than not. And then, again, no longer needs to be attached. So, how this can benefit you. Clients who don't want to downsize to an expensive home, right? We see the square footage of homes getting smaller, prices getting bigger, right? So it doesn't really make sense if you have to downsize, you sell your home, you get the money, and then you have to take that same exact money and buy a smaller house. What this allows you to do is build something on your property that you can live in, that you can then rent out your main house, Again, that generational living, allowing your growing younger kids to come in, bring their family in, and be able to keep the price tag relatively low. Clients with older kids, again, just touching on that, college students, that also applies if you have parents that are elderly that you don't want to put in a home, but you want to be able to keep them close to you and still have that round-the-clock care, be able to keep an eye on them. This ADU will allow you to do that as well. And then a real estate opportunity. We talk about the taxes in New Bedford. We talk about price hikes on houses. Well, this is a way that you can add housing, make sure that people that live here can stay here, and be able to mitigate some of those expenses that you're finding are popping up or growing, whether that be Eversource taxes, things like that, all right? And these are some of the places that you can reach us. Up top on Instagram, Design Build Succeed, Facebook, Design Build Succeed, our website, sca-inc.net. We're right on 45 Slocum Road in Dartmouth, so you can find us there if you want to pop in, ask us any questions. And then you can reach the office or Christian's cell phone. I mean, good-looking guy, you might want to catch him. But thanks again for being here and being a part of this process. I did want to touch on one other thing. When we talk about cost effectiveness, we're looking at anywhere between $250 to $350 per square foot. So a big cutoff of the expense for having an additional place to live or rent out. Okay. And Kevin Saba is up next from Bequel.
Okay. So thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Saber with a company called Bequel. It was great to hear Will talk about taking back the ability to build housing. If we leave it to Wall Street, we're never going to get what we need. To see it come back to Main Street and people pitching in is extraordinary. And it's happening because the towns are paving the way and making it possible for you to do that. I'd like to, first of all, start by thanking the people that preceded me, SouthCoast. They're terrific builders. And I know because I've asked around, very impressive. Well, it may sound like we are competitors. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we at Bequel do is we act as a force multiplier for builders, general contractors, and developers. We do this by building the vast majority of the home off-site. So while the site work and the foundation is going in, this is being built in a factory. And when it comes, it's put down in a day. So instead of starting with when the lumber arrives, we're done when everybody else is beginning. So you're going to get your homes faster, and you're going to get them less expensively. If you remember nothing from what I say today, cheaper and faster. Bequel, I've got to do this, sorry. Let's see. We're going to cover sort of pre-planned versus custom ADUs, quickly managing the process, touching budgeting and timelines, and there's a case study that we did on a project. There's nothing in Mass that we've done yet. This is in California. But you'll be able to understand how things relate to each other. Grab the case study from Nick in the green, Nick Wave. That's Nick afterwards, and you can have that. I think you'll find it helpful. Bequel is all about more housing faster, and we're so serious about it, we actually trademarked it and recently sent a letter to the governor of California, who we noticed was using our trademark on his sign in front of his podium, saying more housing faster. What it really did was get us an introduction to them, and that was really quite terrific. I've spent the last 3 weeks in Altadena, California. You may know it from the fires. What they're facing is devastating. They've got to rebuild 12,000 homes and 5,000 businesses from scratch. And it's really at a time when they're a couple million units short. So just imagine what it's like. You guys get to go onto your property. You don't have to take anything down. You get to add something. You get to start from something you own. You don't have to buy another piece of property. Look at this seriously. This is a wealth-generating opportunity that is a generational wealth-generating opportunity. I hope many of you take advantage of this and take what you've learned and put it to use. Well, I got to do this again. Sorry, I'm not used to this. Let's see. Custom ADUs. So we heard about it. They give you more design freedom. They take more time. They require more involvement. Many of you will find that you can go to a builder or somebody that has something that's already pre-designed, well thought out and vetted. That is not a bad way to go because all of the architectural, engineering, code reviews have already been done on that. So it's a faster way and a much less expensive way to go. I'm going to save this for a little bit. Managing the process, make sure that you're very clear in defining your goals and find a budget that you can live within. Don't reach, make sure you can live within and have room in that to support a contingency because this stuff is so new, nobody knows if they're going to run into it until we get a few thousand of these built in Massachusetts. When you submit your permits, I think one of the things that I would recommend is you choose a contractor very early in the process. You'll check their licenses, get referrals, look at estimates, all that stuff. But where they're really going to help you is making sure that you don't pay the dummy tax for the first time through, because many of you are going to be going through this the first time. They do this every day. Find one you trust and really rely on them in their contracts. Breakdown, permits are going to run you, well, the design and the permits, we're finding $5,000 to $30,000. It's different everywhere. If you buy something that is already designed, it's very light touch for the engineers and the architects. Site prep we're seeing running 10 to 50, and then the build is 2 to 500. Now, oddly enough, I mean, when you think about it, the smaller the unit, the more expensive it's going to be because you're paying for kitchens and bathrooms. And if you're doing 400 square feet, you're going to be at that higher end. If you're doing 800 and 900, you start to come down. So keep in mind, the smaller you go, the more expensive on a square foot basis, less expensive total to build. ADU timelines, if you get something that is pre-approved and you're building it in a factory, you're out of this thing in under 6 months, typically. If you're doing something custom, it could take you a year or more. Permits vary on every municipality. We've got them as fast as a day. Yeah, and you can get them in places like San Jose, California in a day. Other places may take you 2 months. Nobody knows how long it's going to take because we haven't done enough of them here yet. So keep that in mind. Leave yourself some room. The case study I already mentioned, you'll get that from Nick. I'm going to go back to one piece here. And it's really about building types. There are 3 types of building types. They're going to be depending upon and if I'm going over it, let me know. So, site constraints. You may have site constraints that don't allow you to build prefab, don't allow you to have it built in a factory, brought in, swung by crane, or put in by a big fork truck that's called a platypus. If you are fortunate enough to not be constrained, you can build in a factory, you can take advantage of cost and time savings. If you have to build on site, you still have 2 choices. You can stick build, which is traditional, which means the lumber shows up and lifts and every stick gets cut and every piece goes together. Or you can have components, prefab. So you can have walls built in a factory. You can have trusses, you can have roof trusses, you can have floor joists where it's open web and you run everything through. That will get you sort of a middle ground between the 2. So that's an option for you. So even if you are precluded from building the whole home in a factory, you may be able to do pieces of it. Let's see, come back to the timelines, plan ahead case study you have. Final thoughts, pick the right team, pick that contractor early, know your local rules, budget with a cushion. And again, if you take the pre-done plans, you're reducing your risk because nobody knows you're coming out with a permit. You hope you come out with one, but you don't know. It's a lot better to have to not absorb all the cost of custom plans, and then find that you can't get a permit from it. Well, I guess that's it. Okay. Thanks. Yep, that's great. Thank you, guys. Mike.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike McCarthy. I'm the Assistant City Planner. Just to level set a little bit, I work in the Planning Department. We help devise with a consultant and legal counsel the update to the New Bedford zoning ordinance for ADUs to comply with the state regulations. A lot of you, if you're dealing with the ADUs that comply to these regulations, hopefully you won't be dealing with me, although I can be helpful in the process, but the people that I think you will deal with most and that you will have a lot of questions for, I'm sure, because we will send me a few in advance, are most likely for the building department and for inspectional services. They're not here tonight, but I work very closely with them and I can sort of help you generally guide through the process with the understanding that a lot of things are unique to everyone's site and design desires. But I wanted to give a little bit of background, and Josh covered a lot of that. But if you were to build an ADU prior to 2024, when the state passed the Affordable Homes Act in New Bedford, you'd be limited to an owner-occupied single-family home. It would have to be attached, either an addition or created through the existing, somewhere within the existing floor plan. You'd be capped at 1,000 square feet, and you'd have to get a special permit from the zoning board, and you'd have to reappear before the zoning board every 2 years to renew that permit. A very onerous process, which I think is what has led to the development of a lot of illegal in-law apartments in the city that weren't inspected or that were done, on the side. And I've been with the planning department now for 5 years. I've seen one ADU come through under that ordinance in that time frame. So we're hopeful that this will inspire people to take advantage of the space that they have and reimagine it to build some new housing units. So that's what we had. What we are proposing now and what is before council that will comply with state law or in the state regulations is that ADUs are allowed by right in all residential zoning districts that allow for single-family use. It doesn't have to be a single-family use to be an ADU. That's new with the state's regulations in February. You could have a multifamily and propose an ADU on that. It allows for detached and attached, so you could convert a carriage house, you could build a new structure in your backyard, or you could make an attic or a basement a conversion. We have gotten rid of the zoning board requirement under the state regulations and the state law. We can no longer do that for anything that is up to 900 square feet. If you want to go over 900 square feet, we've now raised the cap to 1,200 square feet. Anything from 9 to 12 will require a one-time special permit from the zoning board to do that. And for those ADUs that require a special permit, the ordinance now allows the planning board to adopt design requirements for those. So we're not having someone with essentially two houses on a lot. It would have to fit a certain character description. But those are still being drafted. We want to get the ordinance adopted by the council first. And we also have taken advantage of the state's regulation to prohibit short-term rentals. So like you won't be allowed to build an Airbnb ADU in your backyard. Sorry. I've gotten a few questions about this, and I just want to say, Josh, I think, addressed this in his statements about the goals of the housing plan. It's to create more permanent housing options for people that want to live in New Bedford. We don't want to discourage people from, making a little bit of money, but this isn't the avenue that we feel is the best way to do it, and the state, I think, agrees, and that's why they created that provision option.
And Mike, I'm going to break my rule against questions.
No, go ahead,
now.
please.
My understanding is the state regs are already in place.
That is correct, Will. Thank you. So the state regs exist today. Our ordinance will comply to them and go a little bit beyond. I'll talk about that on the next slide. But you could go today to the building department. The building inspector and the building commissioner are aware of this. And as long as you submit one that complies with the 900 square foot requirement, and as it's spelled out in the state regulations issued by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, you'll be able to do that. And to get back to Kevin's point about hiring someone who knows what they're doing, that's why I think that's really important. This is new to a lot of us. It's new to municipal staff. It's new to builders. So finding someone that's done their research and can help guide you through that process. We can help on our side, but I can't do a lot of your contractor's work for you. That's what they have to do. And in terms of complying with building code and all of that, that's for the building inspector to check, but it's for your contractor or your design team to design something that complies. So speaking of compliance, this is sort of the process that will play out is there a pointer on this? Oh, yeah. So what do? What's the first step in New Bedford? You submit plans to the building department and inspectional services. If your plan shows a 900 square foot ADU or less that complies with all the zoning requirements for the base zoning district, you should be able to receive a building permit as long as it meets general building code and sanitary code requirements. So the state law and the state regulations say that we can't impose anything that's greater than the base zoning district. We've actually gone a little bit beyond that. For an accessory dwelling unit that's detached, you only have to be within 1.5 feet of your side and rear lot lines if you're in the rear yard. And if you're in a side yard, you have to be 6 feet from the side lot line. And you cannot exceed for either on a detached the existing height requirements for a single family. So I believe that's 45 feet. So what do you do if your ADU is non-compliant? Where is that? There it is. So maybe your plans don't meet the setbacks, or you have something that's over 900 square feet. If your plans don't meet the setbacks, you'd be going to the zoning board. If your plans are for an ADU that's over 900 square feet, you'd be going to the zoning board. This is for a variance, this is for a special permit. They're both heard in the same manner by the zoning board. So then this is sort of the typical process. You submit a complete application to the planning department. Our staff can help you review the application and make sure everything's complete. You attend a zoning board meeting, that's once a month. You present your case to the zoning board. They hear your hardship and they either grant you or deny you a permit. If you're denied, you can appeal. That either goes to the land court or I think the Superior Court. If you're approved, you wait a 20-day appeal period, have your approval certified by the clerk, recorded at the Registry of Deeds, then you can present your recorded decision to the building department and receive your permit. So with my little disclaimer here at the bottom that, when you submit plans to the building department for new construction, they should be done by a registered design professional. So that's pretty much all I have. We try and make the process as straightforward as we can. Planning staff is always available. Myself, I work directly with our consultants to help devise this ordinance, so you can reach out to me directly if you have any questions about that. And I can help be a liaison between you and the building department, which deals with a lot more than just ADUs. So I ask for your patience and grace with that. But yeah, I'll turn it over to the next person.
My name is Dawn Young. I'm from Bristol County Savings Bank, and I'm going to be going over some financing options for ADU. Sorry, I'm a little short to be behind here. I gotcha. Thank you. So I'm going to be going over some financing options. Still? I can hear you. So, some financing options for ADUs. And which way? Which way do you?
Point it that direction.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go. You working? Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I got you. All right.
All right. So for some financing options, you've got your traditional home equity loans and lines. You have mortgages. Mortgages can be a cash-out refinance or construction rehab financing. But one thing to keep in mind, when you go to see a lender, make sure you know your own budget. That's very important because as a lender, I'm going to tell you what you're approved for, but you need to be comfortable with that amount. So let's talk a little bit about home equity lines, otherwise known as HELOCs. HELOCs are like a credit card. You borrow a line of credit. You're only paying on the money that you're drawing from that line of credit. So if you take out a $100,000 line of credit and you use $80,000 to build the ADU, that's all you're paying for. What are the cons of a HELOC? They're variable rates. So as markets change, your payment can go up. The next is a home equity loan. Now, one good thing about a home equity loan in line is they can go into second position. And what that means is if you have a first mortgage, and a lot of people today have a first mortgage with a very low interest rate, you bought your home a few years ago, you refinanced a few years ago, this can go in second position and you don't have to touch your first mortgage. So a home equity loan is a fixed rate. So on a HELOC, you have that variable rate. On a fixed home equity loan, you have a fixed rate. It is a shorter term than a mortgage, and the rate is usually a little higher. So your payment is going to be a little higher for qualifications. A cash out refinance. This is a mortgage. So I just spoke about that on a home equity loan in line, they can go in second lien position. You can keep your first mortgage if it's a low rate. On a cash out refinance, you will have to refinance that mortgage. One of the things on a cash out refinance, when you take the money out, you're going to pay from day one. So if you need $100,000, pay off your first mortgage and have an additional $100,000 in cash, you're going to pay from day one. As I mentioned on the HELOCs, you're only going to pay based on what you're using. And you don't have to use it all at once. But when you close on a cash out refinance, you're going to take the whole cash at once and start paying from day one. And I had just mentioned it resets your first mortgage. Now, what about if you don't have enough equity in your current home? You can look at a construction or a renovation loan. Now, on a cash out refinance, when we appraise your home, we're going to look at what your value of your home is today. On a construction loan, we're going to look at what will your home be after an ADU is added to your home. What is the value? So you're going to come into the bank and you're going to provide us your contract. You're going to provide us your plans. We're going to send that over to the appraiser, and they're going to appraise your home subject to completion. So what is your value when everything is done? And that is what we're going to be able to lend you to borrow. So it's going to give you more borrowing powers for a construction loan. Now, a construction loan has about the first 6 to 12 months, you have a draw. So you're only paying on what you need, similar to a HELOC. But after you're done building the house, you now will convert to a full amortized first mortgage. What is the pros of this? You can use on mortgages. A lot of mortgage programs do allow you to use rental income. So that will, again, give you more borrowing power because you can use that as income. I think that's it for the construction. Yeah?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Pam McLean. Hi, everyone. Pam McLean from Bay Coast Mortgage. I just wanted to touch base on a few things. Why finance an ADU? To unlock your home's value or rental income. Adding an ADU will only increase your property's value. And by renting it out, you can create additional sources of income monthly. Flexible options for any budget. Previous slides showed that they were all very different financing options depending upon your budget and your needs. And the goal of this is to find the right mortgage product that best suits your needs and budget. That is certainly key. Getting started. A couple things to do is check your credit. You can go online yourself and check your credit with annualcreditreport.com. Everyone is allowed to check their credit as many times, but they do give you a one-time free yearly check, so you can go online and check your credit. Find out find out how much equity you have in your property. What you can do is you can go onto online platforms such as Zillow, Redfin, just to find out, to get a gauge of what is your house currently worth. And then after adding an ADU, what is it going to be futuristically worth is going to be a little bit more difficult. So I would suggest contacting a local real estate agent, and they might be able to guide you through that. Now, these are just steps. And then one of the first steps would be a pre-approval to plan your project. Talk to a lender, talk to a bank, talk to one of us. Get a pre-approval going, make sure that you can afford what you want to build, whether you're adding on to an attic, like he had said, or you're adding on to a garage, or you're, making a totally separate livable dwelling for in-laws, parents. get pre-approved, know what you can afford, be comfortable with your budget. That's the best way to handle it. So I'm going to be handing this off to Connie at Bay Coast Insurance. Here you go, Connie.
Hi everyone, I'm Connie Wida with Bay Coast Insurance. I'm really here just to give you a little bit of a reminder that you are looking into putting these ADUs in. You have these plans, but who's going to live in this unit makes a huge factor in your homeowner's insurance. And if your standard homeowner's policy that you currently have will cover that type of exposure. So just a few things you should think over: who's going to live in the unit, whether that occupant's going to pay rent. Some carriers will say if it's a relative who's not going to pay rent, they'll extend coverage. And other times, they want to make sure you have that loss of rental income on your insurance so that they can help you if you can't rent that unit for a period of time. Whether the unit is going to be freestanding or detached. A detached unit would be in other structures on your policy, and that's typically 10% of your coverage A. So if your home's $500,000, you would typically have $50,000 for other structures. So you're probably investing quite a bit into this project, and that $50,000 isn't going to rebuild that home or that unit. So keep in mind you may need to increase that coverage. As well as, will it have its own utilities? Is it going to have its own address? There's a lot of little things that may come up that your standard homeowner's policy or carrier will say, that's not our appetite. So more than anything, I'm here just to remind you, first step is to call your insurance agent. If you don't have a local agent, that truly is going to be your best resource. So there's a lot of online Progressive, Geico, where you don't see that person face to face, and a lot of times, having that local agent sit down with you, go over what your project is and what your goal is, and we can help you better that way. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move into questions for our presenters. I also have a mic that I can bring around so we can hear. But if you can raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll try to get around to you with the mic. And then presenters, if whoever makes the most sense, come on up and we'll get your questions answered. All right.
Check. Hey. Patrick Carr, on the planning board in Fairhaven. I got several questions coming from constituents that are asking if the ADUs can be built, you're saying like a modular type home. There's a lot of modulars now that are being made out of shipping containers, either 20 or 40 foot shipping containers, and they can be dressed up to look like homes, and they come as tiny homes, and that could be something very attractive to people, but not sure how Mass is going to look at that, or our very town of Fairhaven, I'm not sure how they will look at that, but do you have any avenues to find out if we can possibly get outfitted containers as tiny homes to be used as an ADU? Thank you.
Yep. Kevin, you want to answer the mic?
Well, let me just start by saying there are 3 different standards that you build a home to. You build to the state and local building code, which is the highest standard. That's what modular construction is. That's what I was talking about. There's something called manufactured homes. They're the successors to mobile homes. They are built to HUD standards. It's a nationwide standard. It's a lesser standard than state and local building code. The third one talks to tiny homes and some of these other things, and that is RVIA standards. That is the lowest standard. You really only get to occupy those as an exception to the HUD regulations, and there's a 2-year limit. So oftentimes if there's a disaster, you will see FEMA rolling these RVs and things like that into that area to house people. The limitation is 2 years. So you're not going to be able to take something that is wheeled in on a chassis, and be able to leave it there permanently. There is a hybrid that is happening in some parts of the country whereby they're taking the HUD units, which come on a chassis and wheels, putting them on permanent foundations, and there's now financing that's beginning to become available to treat it as real estate. The reality is, historically, it's been treated as a chattel mortgage, which means personal property, because theoretically, you could take that chassis and wheels and take it somewhere else. So you want to be very careful. There have been people that have got into trouble thinking they had something that they could use, when in point of fact, it's delivered and they cannot use it. So state and local building code is your highest standard.
Could I just follow up? I'm not talking about something that's on a trailer or being chassis in. I'm talking about a structure that is sound, that a container would be more sound than a building that you could stick build. It's a steel container, and it's enclosed, and it can be put on a fixed foundation. So it would be a fixed property unit. It's not, I'm not talking about like RVs or anything like that. Would that be acceptable?
You need to look at your building code. So everything comes back to the rules. I'd start with the building code and see if that is compliant with it, because what may look to those of us as something that would clearly fit the code, you may find out upon further reflection that in fact it doesn't. So be careful before you spend your money. That would be the caution you bet.
Can somebody come down and look at your property to see if you can start doing this? And how do you go about doing that?
Kevin and Christian?
Yeah, so we gladly, our company, if you reach out to SouthCoast and Associates, or Kevin could talk you through options as well, we can take a look at your property through the New Bedford, if you're in New Bedford or other town. They have online property viewers, and just give a rough overview for if it seems like it would be possible. And then from there, we can help guide you through those next steps for, land surveyors or whomever the next design professional would be, whether it's us, a land surveyor, et cetera. And we can really, help walk you through that whole process.
So you call you?
Sure, you could call us. You can call, yeah. Call us. Well, I'll give you a card before we leave.
I have it. Was it over there?
It was.
Materials over here for after the event.
Hi, I have a 3-family home. I live on 2nd floor. For medical reasons, I cannot do stairs anymore. I have squatters on the 1st floor for 18 months, no rent. But I have a 2-car garage. It's right on the corner of my property, right on the line, both ways. Can I make an ADU out of that?
It sounds like it could be a perfect candidate for it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Questions? All right, make me work here.
Lloyd Mendes, Somerset. Question for Mike, the planner for Bedford. Mike, could you just think out loud for us? I know you don't have your regulations in place yet, but just think out loud about separate metering of utilities versus detached or non-detached units.
Yeah, so there's a provision that, to me, when I read it in the state regulations that deals with utility requirements, a lot of it comes down to what is required by the state code and the building code. Will forwarded me a question late last week about that, and I've got our building inspector and our Department of Public Infrastructure looking into it, but I think it would be a discussion with your local building department about what they would require. I think I've heard anecdotally people that have tried this to do a detached are dealing with metering and separate utility requirements. Attached, it would be probably up to the discretion of the property owner if they want to have a separate meter or not. I don't know if it's required, though. That's more of a building inspector question. Well, Kevin has a
This may help you, it may not. In California, what they allow you to do is something that we're not seeing here. They actually allow you to subdivide your property. So what happens is, if you're going to go that route, you're typically going to separate the meter. But it's expensive to do the separate metering. A water meter could cost you, $5,000. So unless, here, there's no talk of that yet. So unless you're setting it up for some sort of legal division, it's probably going to be cheaper for you to be able to come off and sub-meter off of what you have. You may have to put a bigger panel in, I don't know. That's going to be, you know, every case is different. But if you could, unless you're going to subdivide that property somehow, you may want to stay as far away from separate metering as you can, so.
So I have a question. So with the ADUs, I have an in-law suite and I'm trying to convert that to an ADU. Do I need a separate parking arrangement for the ADU? Do I need to put in a parking?
So, Mike, you know what, I'm gonna let you.
Yeah. So the state regulations say that you can't have a parking requirement within a half mile of a transit stop. Transit stop has a pretty broad definition. Any place you can embark on a bus is considered a transit stop. I was at a webinar for that the state office put together, and they said that if you have a flag stop bus route, the entire route would, under their perspective, would qualify as a transit stop. So in New Bedford, I think that we don't have we have that pretty much exact language in our ordinance. So if you're within half mile of a bus stop, you're not required to do any off-street parking. In your own communities, I'd speak with your building department to find out what that is, but yeah.
And even if there is a parking requirement, the max under the state law is only one space.
Yes.
One additional space is the most they can require. And take one more question. Our panelists are going to stick around, so stick around and talk with them.
So one of the questions I have is, as far as a multifamily that has a finished attic or basement, is it required to have 2 egresses?
So it really depends on the situation that you're specifically dealing with, but in many cases you do need to have 2 egresses. Now, if this is a space that was existing for a certain period of time, let's say it's been there since the 50s or whatever it may be, there are different exceptions in the building code and the existing building code, so we'd really have to look at your exact situation and gauge it based off of that.
Excellent. So I want to be aware of everybody's time, so we're going to wrap up now. Another hand for our presenters. And thanks again to our sponsors, Bay Coast Bank, Bristol County Savings Bank. Thanks again to Common Ground Cafe for the wonderful food.